Today we're going to be talking about Marvel's newest Ghost Rider Robbie Reyes. With the addition of Robbie Reyes to the Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series, I figured why not make him first origin video here on the channel. Now Robbie Reyes lives in East Los Angeles where he works as a mechanic in an auto body shop. When he's leaving work one day, he sees some bullies beating on a kid in a wheelchair. And of course Robbie goes to save the kid, but unfortunately is beat by their leader, Guero, when he pulls a gun on him. After they finish beating up Robbie goes and tries to help the kid up, and it turns out that the kid is actually his younger brother, Gabe. And Robbie's been looking after Gabe since he can remember because his parents died when he was so young. You can already tell that Robbie and Gabe don't live in a great neighborhood, and Robbie tries to make sure that his brother is protected and always has a smile on his face by doing anything he can for his little brother. Which is why Robbie actually goes back to the garage that night and takes the car that he's been working on and tries to enter it in a street race so that he can win the $50,000 grand prize. Robbie ends up putting the car up as collateral because, I mean, come on, Robbie knows that he can drive, he knows that he can beat these chumps, so he doesn't worry about it. And as they're racing, Robbie actually gains the lead and he's just smoking these guys. But unfortunately, a helicopter shows up. Robbie starts freaking out because he thinks this is the cop. He's like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? What's gonna happen to Gabe? Oh my goodness. He ends up trying to evade the helicopter and unfortunately turns into an alley. When Robbie gets out of the car and he tries to give himself up to the cops just end up killing him. I mean, they just murder this dude. It's horrible. Like, the picture is just graphic, man. They light this guy up. And it turns out that they're not even cops, they're just men with guns who were sent to try and retrieve some drugs that were inside of the car. When they get the drugs, they light the car on fire, and the flame just completely starts to engulf the alley. And when the flame makes its way to Robbie ends up coming out of the fire as a man with a skull face. He gets back in the car and chases down these guys. He wants revenge, he's trying to kill them. Robbie races down the highway in this brand new fire engulfed car, and the men see him. They start shooting at the car, and it does nothing. The bullets just bounce right off the car, like they have no hope of surviving. So they shoot a rocket launcher at it, and the car just flips through the air and lands right back on the highway, which is awesome because if you've seen the first episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., then you know that they took the scene in the show directly from the comic books. Robbie catches up to them and drives right through their car and off the highway. As the men make it back to their warehouse, it turns out that a man named Dr. Zabo is actually the man who sent them to get the pills. And Dr. Zabo turns out to be Mr. Hyde. And if you don't know who Mr. Hyde is, then Mr. Hyde is actually Daisy's father from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. who went by the name Cal. That's where that character was based off of. So when Robbie wakes up the next day, he notices that one of his eyes are orange and the wounds that he got from getting beat up from those thugs are completely gone. He doesn't actually know what's happening and it kind of freaks him out, so he's just kind of going with the flow. He goes to his normal school day and he's like, I think I'm gonna need to figure out what's going on later. Something important to note is that the reason those red pills were in the car in the first place is because the pills and the car both belong to a man named Grumpy. Now Grumpy has like his own little gang thing going on in Hill Rock Heights, and he sells the pills to people as roofies. Well, Grumpy wants his car and the rest of those pills back, so he sends his men later that night to go and get the car back. But Robbie also went back that night to try and go get the car because he's trying to figure out if everything that happened was real. Well, they end up running into each other and Robbie goes all Ghost Rider on them, completely knocks him out. I mean, it's no challenge, he's the freaking Ghost Rider. And he ends up chasing after them after they run away, but he's like, you know what, screw it. He blazes past them and ends up in a junkyard, scared and confused. When he looks into the car, he sees the reflection of the Ghost Rider and asks him who he is. And the Ghost Rider just tells him, the real question is, who are we? Robbie doesn't actually know what's going on because, like I said, he has no idea what the hell is happening. And he starts asking the spirit, are you an alien? Are you an angel? Are you a demon? And the spirit just kind of laughs at him because it turns out that the spirit is actually just a regular human man who was killed by a bunch of thugs. The spirit tells him that his name is Eli and that he'll give Robbie his power if Robbie trusts him. Robbie doesn't actually know if he can trust a random spirit that just, is like, hey, I'll help you, whatever, no downside to that. So Robbie tries to walk away saying, I don't know if I can trust you. Eli ends up driving the car through Robbie, literally through Robbie, and turns him into the Ghost Rider again. And he tells him that him, Robbie, and the car are all connected. Now the only thing that Robbie has to do is trust Eli. Eli will give him his power. And you know what? Robbie's faced a hard life. He doesn't want to keep doing this. He wants to protect his brother. So he says yes. And Eli tells him, you know what? We're going to be freaking unstoppable. So the next day when Robbie goes back to the garage, he tries to get his car. And it turns out that his car is gone and his boss is dead. He doesn't exactly know why. But Eli tells him, I know exactly what the car is and I know exactly who did this. And one of the cool powers about the Ghost Rider that I've never seen before is that Eli can actually transport them to the car. You actually see Robbie coming out of the car and beating on the thugs that stole his car. And of course, they were Grumpy's thugs. So after he throws the thugs off the car, Grumpy bursts out of the car because apparently he took a fistful of the red pills and it turned him into this giant, veiny, massive monster that Robbie has to fight. Unfortunately, Robbie gets his ass handed to him, and he gets put in the ground. Literally, he gets put in the ground. I mean, Grumpy is just way too strong for him. And I mean, come on, this is Robbie's first fight. He doesn't really know how to use all the powers. He just turned into the Ghost Rider. He doesn't even know he's the Ghost Rider yet. So, it's, you know, it's okay. Robbie can take this L. He'll be alright. He'll be back and better for the next one. Luckily for Robbie, Mr. Hyde finds out about this whole thing that's going on, and he goes to take on Grumpy himself. And he destroys Grumpy. He rips Grumpy in half, just like no problem, which proves that Mr. Hyde is way stronger because he has the perfected version of his formula. Bad news is that the place where he decided to take down Grumpy, there's a massive shootout now between the gangsters and Mr. Hyde's men, and somehow Gabe ended up in the middle of it. Of course he did. So Robbie races down there as the Ghost Rider to try and save his brother and all the people. He ends up fighting everybody. He takes down the gangsters, he takes down the armed men, he takes down Mr. Hyde. Oh my goodness, it is an epic battle. It is just so cool. While him and Mr. Hyde are fighting it out, you actually see Mr. Hyde talk about how you look like the Ghost Rider, but you don't look like the Ghost Rider. And as they're fighting, Mr. Hyde finally realizes, you know what, you're not the Ghost Rider that I know. You're not the Ghost Rider, you're just some punk. This is really great because Robbie starts to get a better handle on his powers, and he ends up getting the upper hand on Mr. Hyde. And Mr. Hyde starts freaking out, so what he does is he downs a bunch of the red pills, even though he shouldn't. And he starts mutating into this massive, deformed monster man. And it just completely burns him out, and he turns back into Dr. Zabo, just completely winning the fight for Robbie. Just talk about insta-win, completely easy win his first time around. You gotta love stuff like that. But luckily for Robbie, all those people around Robbie that saw the fight now know him as a hero. Now he has instant hero status. People love Robbie while they love the Ghost Rider. And he's now a legend in East Los Angeles because of what he did. And it's just a great way to start a new story. It's a great way to introduce someone. I mean, he has everything to make him a hero. He has all the stuff, and you know what? He's gonna do awesome stuff with it. I want to thank you guys for watching, and if you like it, hit the subscribe button, stick around. We're gonna be doing more stuff, reviews on the TV shows, some more origin stories on people who show up in the TV shows. Maybe I'll just do some awesome origin stories that you guys want, or stuff that is brand new in the comics that I just really want to talk about. I mean, it's gonna be a bunch of stuff. I mean, it's new. I'm still figuring out everything we're gonna do here, but I can tell you right now, we're gonna have a bunch of awesome content, and I hope you guys stick around for it. I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.